Aliens might never have come to this planet in a flying saucer or a giant ribbon or flashy sail or whatever way they used to travel through space. But if they had, and if they then dropped into your house for a visit, what would you offer them? I have a suggestion. How about a cup of coffee? You knew I was going to say that, didn't you? If you're going to do that, you'd be very smart to put the very best in front of them that you can. Let's impress our foreign guests, lest they take it personally that we gave them a cup of crap, and then they get all swallowy on us. Well, spark plug coffee would more than suffice as the one to knock their little green socks off. There's no little green men in this thing, is there? Well, anyway, the theme, aliens. And listen as I tell you that Sparkplug is the freshest, fairly traded, premium Arabica beans in Canada. And if you live in our country, you'll get those orders within a week, and the shipping won't cost you a cent. Americans get that same within-a-week guarantee too, but we regret to inform you that Yanks can't take advantage of free shipping. If your preference is half-calf or decaf, Sparkplug can help. They've got a big old variety of blends and roasts, including rotating seasonal blends. And if you decide to become a member of the Autopilot Coffee Club, you will get deals and even a big bunch of perks, including saving money on every order you make. You can customize to get your orders when it suits your needs, so the bags won't pile up in your cupboard while you're off doing other things, such as battling hangry aliens in your ranch. So don't think of this as a Coffee of the Month club, because it's just not. Your destination is sparkplug.coffee/HYES. Toss our HYES promo code into the right box to save 20% off your very next order. The business has been conducted, so it's time to say yup to hearing about Jordan Peele's third go-round as a director. Bev?
And action!
Have you ever seen... Nope. Hey there, you alien a-holes. And thank you so much for not getting mad at me for calling you an a-hole. A little reference to Independence Day, though. And I did censor myself. Maybe we'll be PG today, not R. But also thanks for downloading this podcast. This is the 542nd horseback ride known as Have You Ever Seen? Our show reviews motion picture classics, although in this case the flick is only a year old. And we always try to do a thorough job of spoiling every last bit of the movies we discuss. I'm the grunter who's never owned an orange Scorpion King hoodie, much less worn one, but I do like to do a cool handshake with a member of my family. Ryan Ellis. And here's a lady who never had the option to vape back when she was a smoker, but I bet she looked pretty cool doing that, and also while riding somebody else's motorcycle across the countryside. My wife, Bev.
That's me.
That handshake I was talking about, we've been doing the Troy and Abed tap-tap handshake thing for about 10 years. I guess since we saw the show, so maybe more than 10 years now. We've been together for, 13-ish? People that know Community know what we're talking about there with the... when they agreed on something, what have you. Bit of a warning, by the way, before we get going here, that Bev is battling a cold. You're probably going to hear that in her voice, and she might struggle, especially as we go along for an hour or so, however long this will be. And also, my stomach is making noises like it has before, even though I just had a lunch. So it could be a lot of weird things going on in this podcast. And it's the middle of the afternoon. It could be people out there, kids and such. So, the coming attractions trivia for Nope. Bev will probably get this right off, but our listeners might not know. Nope isn't just a word, but some have said it's an acronym. It's supposed to be all capitalized when you actually... Is it like that on IMDb? No, it's not on IMDb, and it's not on Wikipedia. Anyway, it's supposed to be all caps. So what does that stand for?
So I don't think this has ever been confirmed, but it stands for Not of Planet Earth.
Mm-hmm. What's interesting about that is that I like the notion that in this movie, or we talked about it in Jaws, even though it's an actual shark, it does things sharks don't do. So it doesn't have to be a natural creature from this earth. Neither does this thing, except if that's what the title's supposed to mean. And you're right, Jordan Peele didn't confirm that. But if that's what it means, then they are saying it's an alien.
Well, the movie obviously invites fans to really dig into private theories that they may have. And one of the, I'll say interesting, I don't think I agree with it, but an interesting theory, it's not an alien creature. This is something that's been with Earth for a very long time.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
Yeah, it might become dormant from time to time, but it's evolved to match clouds. They said that it could explain biblical phenomena like the Ascension.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, it's a bit of a stretch. But one of the best things about the movie is that it invites people to creatively think about all the different ways you could interpret the things left unexplained.
Jordan Peele does that in all three movies then. Get Out and Us also did things like that. Get Out more so than Us, I guess. I like Get Out so much more, which I liked a lot. But I liked it so much more when I heard the theories that people had, especially about slavery and black culture and that. Especially when he picks cotton to protect himself from hearing the cue, I guess it is, the tap-tap cue. Picking cotton, putting it in his ears, well, you know what that means, what that stands for. So yeah, I like the idea that this thing could be actually a creature that belongs on this planet, or was just here millions of years ago, like in The Thing, where that thing's in the ice for, they think it's supposed to be, I think, hundreds of thousands of years at least, or millions maybe. And we think of it as some kind of thing that just came here, and why is it starting trouble with us? Well, we start trouble with animals all the time, too. Another thing in this movie going on here, you got a lot of horses that get killed. Innocent horses are food for this thing.
Plus, I don't get the impression that Jean Jacket, the monster, the alien, whatever you want to call it, I don't get the impression that it's intelligent. I think it's kind of like Jaws. A predator, it goes on instinct. It's doing what it does naturally.
One thing about Jaws I like, too, I may have read this before, so I may be stealing somebody else's theory. A lot of the posters, either individually, and there's one that has all three faces, Daniel Kaluuya, Keke Palmer, and Stephen Yeun, all looking up. And then, of course, the word, it depends on the poster, but the word's often above them, so nope. Very Jaws-like. The shark looks up at the girl, so the girl is nope, the word, and the three, or sometimes the one of them, is the shark. Even though that's backwards, they're the quote-unquote heroic characters, and the word nope, standing for the alien, is, well, the one that eats everybody, so it's a villain in some ways. But you're right, maybe it doesn't have any deliberate instinct to try to hurt and kill anything, but it's just got to eat something. Look at us, we eat things all the time, whether it be plants or especially animals. I told Chris, when we were still doing Score at the Movies, that I had just read, maybe 6, 8, 10 months ago, that apparently if you get a certain kind of microphone on some plants, maybe not all plants, you can hear them screaming if they don't have enough water.
You know, like that wonderful smell of fresh cut grass? Well, you wouldn't know because you have no sense of smell. But when somebody mows their lawn, it smells so good. And then I learned that that is a smell that plants emit when it's a crisis.
Oh, really?
Their smell of them trying to communicate to other, I guess...
They're coming for you, too.
Blades of grass? Yeah, exactly.
Look out, trees.
I don't know what grass is supposed to do about it, but it is a distress signal.
Well, we took down a tree, some big old thing that was dead, had Dutch elm disease. So what did it do? What did it say to its fellow plants? Okay, let's do it here. So Nope was released by Universal Pictures on July 22nd, 2022. This wasn't the great return on investment for Jordan Peele that Get Out and Us were, but it did earn more than $100 million more than it cost to make it, and that total is worldwide, by the way. And it's nice to see that an original idea, all three of these are original ideas that he's had, without any megastars. Kaluuya's a name. He's not a huge name yet.
He's an Oscar-winning actor.
Still, but not a big name in the business. Not like you cast Clooney or someone like that to be in this. Or Denzel Washington, if you wanted black people, of course. But anyway, without megastars, can still be pretty successful during the competitive summer season of July, like it was last year. But, Bev, people definitely need a reminder of what this year-and-a-half-old movie is all about. How could they possibly remember? We've already told them half the story already. But anyway, please give them the skinny on Nope.
Daniel Kaluuya and Keke Palmer are OJ and Emerald Haywood, siblings who have inherited a failing horse wrangling business from their father, who died under mysterious circumstances. OJ and M suspect that UFOs are behind a series of strange happenings around the ranch and so conspire to catch the strange craft on camera and use the footage to save the business. They soon come to understand that the alien is just as dangerous and predatory as it is alluring. A lesson that comes too late for their amusement park neighbor and others who just can't bear to look away from the monster.
By the way, the names, I just read this maybe a week ago. He wears the orange hoodie towards the end, so a big part of the movie. OJ, orange juice, is what that often stands for. Forget O.J. Simpson. But orange there, and then Emerald, she wears green a lot of the time in the film. So the names indicate what they look like. And he doesn't always wear orange. I don't think he wears orange that much, but for a big chunk of the movie, he does. And she wears green, I think, a lot. Maybe always.
What do you think it means that his name is OJ?
He's Otis Jr.
Obviously. Characters even look it in the eye and go, really? Your name's OJ?
A black guy, too.
You could just go by Otis.
In California.
You could
working
go
in
by,
the movie business, which OJ did.
Your name is Otis Jr. It's not a given that you would go by OJ.
Yeah.
It's a choice that you make. Of course, we have scenes in this movie where he is running away from something in the sky that's chasing him, kind of like the Bronco with the helicopter chasing him.
And he's on, effectively, a Bronco, a horse.
Yeah. Oh, my God. Yeah, great point. I'm just even coming up with this now, guys. I'm on fire. But even the notion that, like, the main theme of the film is about how spectacle is both an important part of human nature, but something that we indulge in to the point that it harms us and it harms society.
It might destroy us.
What better example than the OJ trial, than the Bronco chase? Great callback to that. But then there's got to be more to it that the main character is named OJ.
Yeah. Well, it could be that Peele sided with OJ all along. A lot of black people did. I guess some white people did, but generally it was black people that felt like, hey, one of ours got free, right or wrong. Obviously pretty wrong. Or it could be that he's saying that this character feels that way. I didn't do the nutshell, so you set all that up with the thing that they're not supposed to look at it and everything, right? So I'm going to steal from a movie. I do this every once in a while. Got it queued up here. So this is Nope in a nutshell. Turn it up a little bit.
Marion, don't look at it. Shut Close your eyes, Mary, and don't look at it no matter what happens.
I have another theory that I came up with the first time I saw the movie, which is that there is an homage in this film to the classic Halloween episode of The Simpsons with the
Just don't
mascot.
look. Just don't look. That was in my notes until an hour ago, but I took it out because I think I've used that before.
I don't know that Jordan Peele is a Simpsons fan, but I know Jordan Peele just has to be a Simpsons fan. Come on. Their sensibilities are so similar.
His 3 movies are layered so much with references to other films he likes and
pop
probably
culture,
TV shows.
Yeah, loves pop culture references, and it just, I don't know, it's so smart and funny, and he's so smart and funny. I think that the design of the jupe balloon that ultimately takes out Jean Jacket at the end of the film is intentionally designed to resemble Fat Boy. What is the name of that Simpsons?
The donut, yeah.
The donut guy. Lard Lad.
Right.
It looks like Lard Lad.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good point. All right, well, got a lot of theories to get through. But let's set the movie up.
Okay.
Well, we've already
I keep jumping on you here. Go for it.
This kind of movie does that. And a lot of times when we don't get to the numbers until 15 or 20 minutes in. And we're not quite that deep in yet. Anyway, Rotten Tomatoes numbers on this are pretty good, but the other movies are better, meaning Get Out and Us. So this had 83%, or has 83%, of critics on Rotten Tomatoes liking it. 7.5 out of 10 is the average. There are 469 reviews on the site. Modern movie, of course. That's why there's so many. And 69% of audiences. Not awesome. Fresh tomato from them, but not by a whole lot. Get Out is at 98%, and before we sat down, I had it at 95%, so something must have changed. People must have reviewed this movie recently and bumped it up 3 percentage points when I last looked at Rotten Tomatoes, which wasn't that long ago, about Get Out.
It's aging well.
So 98 and 86 from the audiences for that movie, and Us is at 93% and 60%. That's a huge difference. I don't know what that's all about.
But a similar ratio to this film.
It's also curious that Rotten Tomatoes audiences don't rate Peele very well, yet all 3 movies were hits. This was the least of them, but it still was a hit. Especially, like I say, coming out in the competitive summer movie season.
And you say, well, there isn't really a big crowd-drawing star in this film, but I think that Jordan Peele himself is becoming a crowd-drawing star of a director, kind of like Tarantino. It doesn't matter who's in the movie. People are going to go see it just because it's a Jordan Peele film.
Yeah, okay.
And then you would think that the audiences would then begin to be curated. The people who went to see Us saw it in droves because they loved Get Out. The people who saw Nope came out and saw it because they loved Us and Get Out. So you think that it would be like whittling down audiences to narrow it down to people who are into his specific style.
Well, it is maybe because he's made less money each time with each movie. I think it's literally gone down each time. Although, again, successful. This was 14th at the box office domestically last year. It was 28th worldwide. Top Gun 2 was number 1 in America, and Everything Everywhere All at Once, we covered that just a few months ago, was 25th. Nope won its opening weekend, then was 2nd, 3rd, 5th, and kept dropping, which isn't surprising for, and this is a horror movie in a way, it's a sci-fi movie, it's a drama. That often happens, if not usually happens. Horror movies often plummet when they first come out. This didn't plummet, but it did drop pretty steadily. And it was nominated for no Oscars. The script could have been, the cinematography probably should have been. Hoyte van Hoytema, he's becoming a bit of a modern legend. He works with Nolan all the time. And the visual effects, especially when you see at the very end what Jean Jacket is, this original looking, although I suppose it's based on real creatures. I read it is based on real creatures, but we've never seen an alien look like this before.
I read the opposite. I read that he was trying to create something that was out of nature. His main inspiration for the creature's design was an anime series called Evangelion,
I've heard of that.
where there's these alien creatures that are completely outside the realm of nature, like nothing that we see in nature now. And they don't look like Jean Jacket, but I can see where he drew inspiration. I think of it as a camera shutter at the end when you see that square flap, flap come out at the end when he's really trying to get someone's attention. Squares almost never appear in nature, especially a perfect square like that. But you just don't see a ton of right-angled sharp corners in nature ever. So it's a very unnatural thing.
And if it is taking pictures, well, that's appropriate because Get Out and this movie have that theme in droves. Get Out, when the picture is taken of Lakeith Stanfield, before anyone really knew who he was. That's what wakes up the black guy inside of him, and the white guy is pushed back or something. That's where the Get Out comes from. Get out!
Just FYI, the other thing I think of when I think of monsters that are felled by a camera flash, also from The Simpsons.
That's true,
From the
yeah.
Itchy and Scratchy episode, where they go to Itchy and Scratchy Land.
Yeah, different Treehouse of Horror episode, I think it was. Yeah, it was.
No, it's a whole episode, isn't it? Where
You're right,
they all
it
turn?
is.
Yeah. Terminator style happens in Itchy and Scratchy Land
Or
with all the
Westworld,
animatronics.
Jurassic Park.
Yeah, Westworld's probably a better reference here.
And of course, this movie is all about trying to get a picture of something. For good or bad, they want to get on Oprah. All right, well then, I know you like the movie. We got this, by the way, at a yard sale, a screener that cost us $1. It's also on demand anyway. I didn't know that at the time. That's one reason we picked it. Also got a black director, a great director. We like him a lot. He's an event person for us. We wouldn't miss his movies on the big screen, I don't think, in the future, unless he really starts going way downhill. And it's going to take a while for us to feel that way about him. Many movies. He's only made 3. But anyway, what do you think?
Well, I love it. It's so exciting to me that Jordan Peele keeps making each one of his films more challenging and complex, even if it seems like he might be losing audiences while he does it. He obviously came right out of the gate with a firm handle on how to make a film entertaining and gripping and how to weave social commentary into a really thrilling story. And now that he has a loyal fan base like us, he trusts his audience to come to some pretty abstract places with him. And I always adore a film that leaves you puzzling over details and the truth behind it. And so I find this movie so deeply compelling. The second viewing was super rewarding.
I went to look at people's theories about the ending, what exactly is going on. I assume you did. Do you think, A, the thing is actually dead? And more importantly, the thought I had when Emerald okay, let's say she killed it. Okay, it's gone. You vanquished the bad guy. You blew up the shark in Jaws with the oxygen tank and the rifle. And then up comes Dreyfus. He shouldn't have lived, but he did. Okay? So they get to swim off into the sunset and they're fine. Last she saw, OJ was going to provide a distraction and he was probably going to be eaten, and so would the horse be eaten. He was willing to do that to save his sister. But then after she's vanquished the thing, she looks over. I think she blinks or something like that, almost like, oh, that can't be right. And she sees him through the smoke. And the movie goes to black. When it's clear, it's him and the horse standing there. I wonder if the movie's suggesting that that's not real and she just wants that to be, that he's still there. The look on Keke Palmer's face is, this is a wishful thinking type thing rather than what really happened. So anyway, do you think that the creature is gone? Will there be a sequel to this movie? And did OJ and the horse live?
So it's open to interpretation, and I think it was intentionally left open to interpretation. I think Jean Jacket is dead. He exploded. I guess he could come back, but that would totally be a sequel thing. Or you could easily write a sequel where you say, oh, well, Jean Jacket
had a friend.
Had a whole family. He was actually the youngest sibling. They're all even bigger and more dangerous and scary than he was.
Which they would be in a sequel.
Right, exactly. So you don't really need to leave him alive to leave the possibility of a sequel open. My interpretation is that OJ is alive because of 2 things. One, Jordan Peele's just too good of a director to have a moment like that wasn't emotionally earned. And the point of the film, even though they are siblings that have problems with each other that are very different from one another, I don't feel like it's a strong enough emotional through line, their conflict with one another, that this would be a big resolution for her. To see him like, oh, my brother saved me, oh, my brother sacrificed himself for me. There was no build-up for that to happen. In a lesser filmmaker, I'd be like, oh, okay, maybe that's what they meant, and they just didn't really pull it off very well.
But the homage guy might be homaging horror films, like we're covering this month that I covered, Halloween, Friday the 13th, A Nightmare on Elm Street came up on those podcasts about the final girl. Well, she's the final girl. Almost nobody survived other than... What's his name
Angel
again?
survives as well.
Angel, yeah, he's the only other one. She doesn't know that, but he's alive too.
Angel and OJ are practical and smart. OJ is the most practical and smart and kind of technology averse. He's a character that's best suited to fight Jean Jacket because he doesn't like attention. He doesn't like being a spectacle. And he's the first one to figure out that it's all about not looking at him. So he draws Jean Jacket away, and I think he has the skills and wherewithal to know when and how to lower his hood so it doesn't look like he has eyes on his back, or whatever it takes to confuse the monster and get away. And why would you let that death happen off screen? I guess it just comes down to I give Jordan Peele more credit than that I don't think he would mess with us in this cheap trick way, but he would also leave it open enough that some people might ask, is he alive? Give you cause to wonder, and then, just another great thing to make you think about the movie long after you've left the theater, right?
It'll be a rough couple of months, though, to have their father get killed by this thing when it shoots down all those keys. And apparently it's a nickel that is what finishes Otis Sr. off. And he does live for a little while. OJ he does get him to the hospital, but he dies there.
A gruesome scene, too. It's quite tragic to watch.
Out. Yeah, why don't you have him do something to keep the blood from spurting out of his neck? If he can't do it himself, then, I don't know, tie something around his neck so maybe he wouldn't have bled out the way he did. But he did make it to the hospital, just didn't survive when he got there. That'd be a rough, however long this is supposed to be, that she loses her brother and her dad. And a lot of people she doesn't really know or care about that much, but all of Ricky's people are certainly gone. There's one of the most unusual and creative things we've ever seen in a movie. When they're all sucked up at Ricky's show, he's looking up, they're all looking up because he wants this thing to come out. He wants to exploit it. Didn't learn from his youth when that chimp Gordy was exploited and killed everybody.
Oh, but he did learn
Or badly
because
hurt.
he was fine, right?
Okay.
He learned that he's special. This is the implication. Jordan Peele described Ricky as a unique guy based on observations of the type of trauma that this industry can inflict on people who are launched into the machine of attention. And he said, I'm very close to this character. Let's just put it that way. A lot of criticism for this movie, and I don't think it's totally unfair, is that the character of Ricky just doesn't feel like he belongs necessarily.
Yeah, okay.
Everybody's like, what is up with the chimp stuff? If he felt like more of an integrated character rather than this peripheral neighbor that could be a foil or could be something else, but you just don't feel like, I need to know Ricky's whole backstory more so than I need OJ or Emerald's backstory.
And this movie is well over 2 hours long, too.
It feels a little shaggy in that sense. But this helps explain why Jordan Peele was so interested in him as a character and his backstory, and how being famous at a too young age will literally damage
Even when
your
an
brain.
animal doesn't kill the cast or badly hurt the cast.
Yeah. So his...
Not a common thing in television shows.
No. So Jordan Peele has said that when that moment happens to Ricky, when he is a boy, he is a famous kid, he already thinks he's very special, and then he sees his castmates being bludgeoned in front of him, and not only is he spared, but the chimp goes as far as to give him a fist bump. You're cool, man.
Which doesn't get finished. I like the fact that Peele doesn't actually make sure that they tap hands and then pull away and then Gordy's shot and killed. Because it could suggest that it was about to tap his fist and then still do damage to him too, because why not?
Why not? We don't know that, but we know that Ricky is convinced after that moment that he has this special communion with Gordy, with other animals, and that is what tricks him into believing that he's safe. His performance is so interesting to me because they have these great flashbacks. The violence is intense and honestly troubling to watch. It's not cute, it's not horror gore, it is disturbing. Then they will cut hard back to Ricky's face staring in the distance with this placid expression on his face.
Because it was a long time ago.
Because it was a long time ago, and because he's repressed that trauma so much and turned it into a person that we see that we're like, we don't know that he's broken, but this man is obviously broken.
His co-star survived, so she didn't die. I think that's suggested somewhere I read online that maybe they all survived, but we know for sure that, what was her name again? That she survived.
Jessica?
That mangled face.
Yeah. Another reference to Oprah. You didn't remember this, but I really remember this. I want to say in the early 2000s, there was a woman who was attacked by a chimp. It was her friend's pet chimp, Travis or something crazy like that. And the chimp tore her face right off. And she had many reconstructive surgeries. The best they could do was something that was honestly pretty hard to look at. Pretty similar to when we finally do see this actress's face, the makeup that they put on her face, not dissimilar from what happened to that woman back then. And I know what her face looks like because after all the surgeries and after all the tabloid stories and after all the dust was starting to settle, she went on Oprah and she did a full episode where she wore a hat with a veil, just like this woman wore. And she talked about her experience, and we all got to see her face and what it looked like. And the spectacle, I loved Oprah. I still kind of love Oprah. But I'm not going to deny that that woman got viewers partially because she's the person that gets the tabloidy, exploitative interview with somebody who's been through the worst time of their life. Or even someone like Prince Harry and Meghan. People want to talk to her because they always come off well, but she always also knows what people really desperately want to see, and they want to see under the veil, right? And this is part of the reason why her show did so well, not just because of the force of her personality and what I believe, true or not, came across as empathy to her viewers and to America in general.
And aren't the Haywoods trying to get their footage on Oprah? Although Oprah didn't have a show anymore.
That's why they keep saying Oprah.
Although
No, I
she
know,
had
right?
That other show maybe around the time they made this movie? Because he wrote this during the pandemic, the early part of the pandemic.
Her show was canceled like 10 years
No,
ago.
but
I'm
didn't
not
she
sure,
do another
but-
one?
Well, she has her network, and
Yeah.
she'll do specials. So the idea is that, well, if this gets big enough, then she'll do a special
Okay.
about us. Or maybe it's just a shorthand for, like, when you get Oprah famous.
Yeah, they say getting on Johnny, meaning Johnny Carson. Of course, he's
Right.
long retired, and there's so many late night shows. Who is the number one person? Forget ratings, because if it is Jimmy Fallon, does anyone say, I gotta get on Jimmy? And if they say that, people might think, you mean Kimmel.
Maybe it really is just like a shorthand for a level of fame
Yep.
that can only
She's the Babe Ruth of that business, basically,
Yeah,
especially
yeah.
daytime interviewing. Because Johnny's the Babe Ruth of nighttime interviewing even now. So anyway, I led this up by saying that one of the more unusual things we've ever seen in a horror movie, or any movie, I guess, is that we do see Ricky and the other people being digested, or at least eaten at first,
Yes.
And you hear the horrible screams later that night when Jean Jacket goes back to the Haywood Ranch again and rains blood, obviously all these people, their blood, all over their house. But to see them in there, I guess in the very beginnings of being digested, reminds me of the thing in Return of the Jedi. Maybe that's an homage again. They go in the Sarlacc pit, or they're supposed to. Boba Fett ends up in the Sarlacc pit, and then his show, we see that he got out of there very soon after, but he's supposed to, like they all did, they went in there. A few of them ended up in that sequence in Jedi. You'd be slowly digested for 1,000 years. I like it. Somebody pointed out recently something I never thought of before, which is, yeah, but you would be dead within a couple of days. You don't need water and food, and of course, if it tears you apart anyway.
Probably asphyxiate
your
within
body
minutes.
parts,
Yeah.
right? Your body parts might last inside this thing for 1,000 years, but you'd be long dead. It's not like you're going to live for 1,000 years. Anyway, so that's an unusual shot and a great one, but also a horrific moment in a movie that's not that scary a lot of the time, although it's great tension all the way through. That's all them being crapped down in this house or bled down in this house.
Yeah, this movie doesn't have a ton of scary moments, but just like the Gordy scene, it has a lot of haunting moments. And I can't think the Sarlacc picture, but do we see an interior shot
don't.
of the Sarlacc?
In the Book of Boba Fett, you do, but that's a TV show decades later.
It's such an interesting choice to show the interior of this creature, and it presumably takes hours before he even bothers digesting his food.
'Cause they're still alive.
He kind of treats the Haywood Ranch like a toilet. So he goes over there because he's like, all right, time to finally eat these people, and I'm going to make a mess, so I'll just take it all over here.
On our house.
At our house. Oh, my God.
You couldn't have done it 40 feet over in the field.
Beautiful horror moment. I mean, beautiful and disgusting and amazing. And unique. One of the extra cool things about this movie is how many moments feel like something I've never seen before. And another reason why it makes a great second viewing, because the first time you're watching it, you spend half of your energy just being like, what's going on? When you first see them in the Alien, you're like, are they gonna die? Is this bad? Are they gonna get eaten and killed? I don't know. I don't know what happens after they get ingested by the alien. There's been plenty of Alien movies where people get beamed up and they're fine. Or maybe they experience some trauma and they go home, or maybe it's actually kind of like a Close Encounters of the Third Kind thing, which is one of the films that Jordan Peele said he asked everybody to watch, along with Jaws.
Close Encounters has actual flying saucers, and there's lots of this movie where the thing looks like a flying saucer, the stereotypical flying saucer. So playing off the 50s movies as well, I guess, with that stuff. And at the very end, they're out in the middle of nowhere, and it's only a few people, well, maybe about 100, involved in Close Encounters with this alien encounter, and it's all positive. This isn't positive at the end, but it's only a few people involved in the middle of nowhere. Although they're not that far from Hollywood, so it's not like they're truly off like they are in Close Encounters with the Devil's Tower thing in Wyoming, not exactly a populous state to begin with. But still, they're in the countryside in California, which people think of as, oh my God, San Francisco and Los Angeles and San Diego and Sacramento, all these big cities. And yes, it has all those things, and there's some fairly good-sized cities inland as well, but most of California is forest and farmland.
It must be close enough to the city to have it make sense to put an amusement park out there, because Jupiter's Claim is right there, and it doesn't seem to be doing that well as a business, but obviously it can't be that far off the beaten path.
Or you wouldn't do it at all out there. Yeah, you'd never get business, period. Well, the name of the movie is said really early on during footage of the Gordy show. Not Meet Gordy. What was it called again?
Gordy's Home.
Gordy's Home, that's it, right. And OJ says, nope, when he's in the truck at night. He ends up falling asleep out there. So again, it's supposed to stand for, we think anyway, not of planet Earth, but it actually is a word that's used in this movie. Not all that much, but plenty.
I think it's kind of a play on the black people always say they would actually be the ones to survive horror films because they're never the ones that get closer when they hear a strange noise. They would be the first to run.
I also like that if you reorganize the names of his movies, it basically is a sentence. Us? Get out? Nope. Not us. We're not getting out. Also in the footage that we see of the show, I think it's the very first thing we do see is the TV show, right? Which definitely threw me off the first time we saw the movie because you wondered why you're seeing this. I think the very first thing is when Gordy, well, you didn't see what he's doing. You see later on when he actually does these people, but you see the carnage.
Chimp sitting there, you see the blood, and I think you hear the balloons popping because the idea is that the balloon set him off, which Jean Jacket killed by a balloon.
Yeah. And the stand-up shoe, the miracle shoe.
The bad miracle.
Ricky has still, after all this time, I guess it's been decades, in that hidden room back behind where his office is.
Yeah, the shoe, Jordan Peele said, is a bad miracle. Something unbelievably unlikely happening in the midst of a tragedy, and it's an unlikely event, like a miracle, that helped Ricky convince himself that he was special. He looked at the shoe, he focused on the shoe, and he was like, this must be a miracle. But he interprets it incorrectly as a miracle that he was saved, rather than a bad miracle that events conspired to have his entire cast pummeled to near death.
One thing I like about that scene also is the applause sign is going off.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a stab in the heart also. You should be applauding if you're watching this.
Also, somebody noticed the cameras in that scene, the 80s style TV cameras.
This was the mid-90s, though.
Oh, sorry, the 90s style TV cameras look a lot like the alien costumes that his kids wear later on. So you could imply, oh, well, he has a subliminal fixation on this image that he associates with danger or whatever. Or as just like a message to the audience, too, that there's a connection between a recording device and aliens.
Mm-hmm. Well, that sequence in the barn with the kids is one of the true horror moments because you don't know what the hell's going on. We don't know at that time that this ship doesn't have little green men, and that's what these kids are basically acting like. But they're very clever in how they do their, not even jump scares, actually. He's not going with jump scares in that moment. Well, there's one, I guess, when one of them comes from behind him inside one of the,
him in the face.
Horse stables. Right, yeah, he punches the kid out. So that's the only one, I think. But the longest sustained moment of tension in that is one of the kids, and we don't know they're even kids at that point. They're wearing the masks. They could be actual aliens. Anyway, it's off in a bit of the distance, and it does some weird skittering thing towards him, and then peeks its head up over a stall. That's probably more classically scary than most of what happens in the movie, because one of the things that I always think of when I think of the maybe last 30 minutes is when the flying saucer version of Jean Jacket comes swooping down, and it's just about to suck up OJ, but he does avert his eyes. He just doesn't look and then hides in the barn. But that's broad daylight. And I always loved that. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I've talked about that before. We covered that movie many years ago. Maybe the best scare in the whole movie is when Leatherface comes out and grabs the girl that he hangs in the meat hook. Blazing sunshine, middle of the day, and for that matter when he kills her boyfriend before that. Usually these kinds of scenes are set at night, but not in Texas Chainsaw. There's some night scenes too, but the killing of those two is not. And in this, most of the movie is during the day. Yes, some of the things happen at night, but the entire climax, probably 25, 30 minutes, or however long it lasts, is during the day. And that sequence I'm talking about, which was supposed to have been a few days before, is during the day.
And the last movie that we covered this month was The Conjuring. The best thing it does is really get under your skin.
Slow burn,
It's scary. But it seems like Jordan Peele's not really interested in doing that with his horror films. So much so that this scene with the kids tricking him almost feels like a gag, like a little nod to the audience, like, here you go, this will give you a little thrill, and then we'll get back to like the movie I actually want to make.
And that was way more effective the first time we saw the movie than the second time.
Yeah, it wasn't scary at all the second time, because you know. But he uses a lot of those old tricks, the same kind of stuff that James Wan would do.
Right. But one weapon at the disposal of Jean Jacket, which of course is what OJ calls the thing, based on a horse that Emerald had as a kid. That was a conflict between the two of them, wasn't it? When she realized that Dad prefers you to me.
Dad didn't trust her to train the horse. It was too important to just give her a chance.
But it was her horse.
It was her horse, and then he took Jean Jacket away from her because they got a job that needed the horse, and he was like, well, you're not good enough yet. And she felt that sting. OJ was obviously always the preferred kid who was going to follow in their father's footsteps. And so when she has all these side gigs that OJ turns his nose up at, well, she has to have something. She can't run the ranch. So what do you expect her to do?
More subtext there.
She's the one that not just kills Jean Jacket, but she is the one that gets the photograph of him. Yeah. That's like her redeeming moment. She has an arc.
Which I find interesting to be that, oh my God, she got the shot. You might have said this even 10, 15, 30 years ago, but you'd certainly say this now. Who's going to believe that's necessarily real?
Okay,
you
well,
can
the same
fake
way
anything.
you can fake any photograph ever, but what happens is that people say, is this photograph real or not? Okay, well, we have at least 3 witnesses, including anybody that might have survived the Jupiter's Claim massacre.
Who's the third? It's Emerald, Angel, and
OJ. In my assumption that he actually is alive at the end. I'm not going to say anybody's wrong for saying he's not.
This has to be intentional by Peele also. Angel, so Brandon Perea, he must be Hispanic, I'm guessing. Several black people, but 2 main ones, because Keith David's in the movie briefly at the very beginning as their dad. Michael Wincott is an old white man. Okay, fine.
He's the cinematographer.
But then you got the Asian Ricky.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very representational. It's not a very big cast, but it's representational in the cast it has.
And I wouldn't say it's colorblind casting because it's important that Emerald and OJ are black. Well, I mean, you could easily recast as white people, change a few lines in the script, a few characterizations, but they make them black and they make them seem black, not like sometimes you see a black character in a movie and you're like, this was clearly written as if they were white, and then they just cast a black actor.
Well, Peele said, I think, after Us, when he was promoting that he was going to only make movies about, at least primarily, black people. And somebody said, how dare he?
I know, how dare he? I think there's, like, enough movies about white people, and I don't think they're going to stop making them anytime. So if one person is like, I just want to make movies about black people, who cares? And if you can't enjoy a movie with black protagonists, You're just racist. Give me a freaking break. These movies are amazing.
Well, Get Out is way more white people than black people. You know, that's his biggest hit and most acclaimed movie and won him the Oscar for writing. Us has mostly black people in the leads, obviously, but then you've got the Elizabeth Moss family. We see a decent amount of them in the movie. They're not a ton, but they're in the movie. And this has a cast that's not by any means entirely black. You've got the two main characters, by far, have the most screen time. But there's quite a bit of Brandon, and in the last half or so, you got quite a bit of Michael Wincott. What a great voice that guy has.
Oh, God, yeah. Just right from the jump, when they're in the studio, somebody asks the questions, and he's just like, no.
Should say nope.
Yeah.
This was his first movie in 5 years, by the way. He was Guy of Gisborne in Robin Hood, 1991 Costner one. He's the cousin of Alan Rickman's character. And he did a lot of movies with Oliver Stone back in those days. So he's one of those guys, I recognized him immediately because of that voice. I don't know if anyone else did. Well, some people obviously do. I'm not the only person that knows that guy's voice. But he hasn't been around that much in the last 20 or so years. But I think he does a pretty good job in this movie. His character may not be the most valuable or necessary, but then again, he's so obsessed with getting the great shot that he lets himself get sucked up and killed by Jean Jacket because he has that hand-cranked IMAX camera. They've already got a lot of great footage. They don't really need to have this perfect shot on a mountaintop, but he's willing to kill himself for it. And then the camera's ruined anyway.
He was shooting on IMAX film. I guess you have to shoot on film because that's the only way you can make a mechanical camera, because the alien sucks electricity out of the air, whether it's from battery or from a power source.
Interesting touch. I don't really get that entirely, but yes, it has the ability to control the power. It shuts off just ordinary electricity.
Or it accidentally shuts off the power. I'm not sure if it's an ability so much as it's just its proximity to something will kill electrical devices.
I do like that tactic, though, of using the, what do you call those, the wavy arm guys you usually see at car dealerships?
I think they're just called wavy arm guys.
Okay.
From car dealerships.
But when they go flat, then they know the thing is there somewhere in the area.
Cool, and a cool way to use color. I love the way they use color in this movie. So many films these days are very drab, very gray, and very dark. This seems to be both the style and also technologically, when you have a lot of special effects, it's cheaper and easier to shoot something that's dark. So to see a movie that is bright, that has this harsh sunlight, but also this symbol with the flags with the multicolors, a symbol with the wavy car dealership guys.
And the orange hoodie and her green outfits, those colors pop.
Yeah, exactly. She wears green, he wears orange. These are bright representative colors. I find it so refreshing now whenever a movie is just colorful.
Well, Hoyte van Hoytema works with Nolan all the time. He'll probably get nominated for Oppenheimer, but he's only been nominated once before. I think he probably should have been for this movie. It looks wonderful. And they did shoot on IMAX cameras, so we got the character using an IMAX camera hand-cranked, but they actually used IMAX cameras for at least some of this movie. And when we saw it on the big screen last year, it really did pop off the screen. We saw it on something that wasn't that big a screen. We saw it this time, of course, on our 42-inch TV, but this movie belongs on the very big screen.
There was a picture that went viral from the set of this film with the house in the desert. They showed the lighting setup of that shot.
There's two cameras that get the look.
Well, I'm not talking about cameras, I'm talking about the lighting. That there was this massive kit that was built to be above the house with a giant diffusion layer sheet. The picture of the setup itself is a work of art. This is what Jordan Peele gets once he has a budget and he can really see his vision with all the equipment that he could possibly need. And it is, I think, his best looking film.
Oh, yeah,
all his films look pretty good, especially like Get Out when you consider that he was working with what he had and nothing else.
Smaller budget. That was from Jason Blum.
Yeah, that was a Blumhouse film.
I say Blum. It's Blum.
It's Blum, yeah. Blumhouse film means it has
probably 5 to 10 or something like that.
I think that their max budget is $5 million.
And this was $68 million.
Right.
But you're not paying for huge stars. You're not paying $20 million to one person to be in this movie.
No, but you're paying for that IMAX film and you're paying for that lighting kit.
And the actors weren't free.
And special effects are actually incredible. You don't really get a good look at the alien. Intentionally, you don't get a good look at the alien. Even in the last act, it's hard to get your eyes on him.
Much like Jaws.
But it's also kind of a device in the film that he creates this creature who's 100% original, like nothing we've ever seen. And we're desperate to just get a look at him, but he keeps teasing us. It's out of focus. It's only in frame for 15
but unlike
frames.
The shark in Jaws, it changes shape and form as well.
Yes, and it keeps changing. And it has these unnatural ways of moving and being. And we're so fascinated by it. It really turns on that urge to see something that's unfamiliar so that when the cast is trying to not look at Jean Jacket, you're like, but I want to look at Jean Jacket. You can feel the urge to just turn their heads and get a load of this creature that they have never seen before, will never see again, that is so otherworldly, but then also probably save them money on special effects. And the money that they do spend on special effects, they
Hit a home run.
They really did. What a cool creature. Truly original and beautiful. I was talking earlier about some people connected this to Ascension, that it's supposed to be an angel. Well, some people also said the design of the creature could be the way the Bible in Revelation describes what angels actually look like. They don't look like human form. They look like these bizarre creatures with many eyes, and that could be an association too. But whatever it is a real work of art, almost like a Miyazaki level of creativity and a little gift to the audience to give us something so brand new to look at.
And little green men, or at least humanoid figures in sci-fi alien movies, has been done forever, and sometimes it's been done very well, like in Close Encounters. But it's also a cliche. Why are they always humanoid? Well, because you want actors to put on a suit. But in this case, you got something that's not humanoid at all. I covered Superman back at the end of June, and I pointed out the story that apparently Brando said, because he was lazy and didn't want to be on camera, that his character should have been a glowing green bagel or something like that. Which is dumb. I think he'd like to do things like that to test his directors, and I guess Donner didn't agree, obviously, because Brando was actually, I think, pretty good in that movie, despite the stories about him being such a dick to work with. But I think I pointed out in that podcast, and if I didn't, I will now, why is it so impossible to believe that this great brain, all of them really, but especially him, Jor-El, on some faraway planet that's millions of light years away, has to look anything like us, even though they do look exactly like us. No wonder Superman fits in with us, because apart from having superpowers, he could just be a guy, as he is when he's Clark Kent.
What are the chances that an alien species on a different planet would resemble us
at all?
That closely at all? You're saying that they would walk upright on two legs and have two arms? That's not even common on Earth. Why would it be common on other planets? Yeah. And if you look at just the diversity of life on Earth, there's such a wide variety of creatures just on this planet. We haven't even discovered them all. And the further you go from what is comfortable for people to live in on land in this climate, you go deep into the sea, you start to see creatures that are more alien than even the most creative minds can come up with. So
look at the Abyss.
Why are we... Oh, yeah, Abyss. Although in the Abyss, don't they eventually look like people standing up in their little water forms?
But their ships are at least somewhat original, especially for 89.
Yeah. Why not have fun with that creativity? We recently saw a good, not great movie, No One Will Save You. They're really not giving anything away to say it is a very Little Green Men style of aliens.
Bigger than she is, but she's so small.
And some creative license was definitely taken in the creation of those creatures. Why can't we break that mold? It's been decades of this.
It's true. I want to backtrack, by the way. It's something, a bit of a hard left turn here, because, of course, the theme of the movie, at times, is race. We see that footage of the black man on a horse during the credits. I think that's the very beginning of the movie. And then I think we see the footage of the TV show with the massacre, whatever Gordy did. He at least beat these people up badly if they didn't die. But we see a black man on a horse, and then it's supposed to be that, well, black men were cowboys. Why couldn't they be? I really liked, what's it called again? The Harder They Come or The Harder They Fall? Maybe The Harder They Fall. That black Western movie. I think it was last year.
A Netflix film.
The performances especially. The story was okay, but I love the performance. I really love the ending as well. I believe it's a twist ending. But anyway, getting back to the race thing, because OJ is not good at promoting himself. His father was, but his father's been dead for 6 months now. And he's on this movie set, and the horse freaks out because even though he tells them, don't put that...
It's an eye. The horse mistakes it for an eye.
Right.
But it's like a thing they use in special effects. Right. I'm not sure exactly
what it's for. Right up in the horse's face, and then it freaks out, which, of course, harkens back also to Gordy. But Emerald strolls in there, and Daniel Kaluuya has to play, even though it's a pretty good role, the drip the whole time. She gets to have fun. Keke Palmer is terrific in this movie.
Oh, God,
and right from the start, when she walks in and tells the story, and this isn't a vitally important detail apart from character building, but people pointed this out, I think, even last year, so I want to bring it up now. When she says about how our great, she says great several times, grandfather, but then she takes a breath and you hear OJ in the background say, great. She's stolen her father's speech word for word, except he's older than her, obviously, so you got to say great one more time.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing, because there's this conflict with her dad that she talks about. We don't ever see it, of course, because he only has screen time with Kaluuya for a few minutes and then Keith David's gone. But she's stolen her dad's speech, that obviously is something he said probably thousands of times, that she memorized. Maybe she recorded it and got to know it that well, but I think the suggestion is that she just watched him do it so many times and heard it so many times. It got in her brains, like me with the speech at the end of Big Lebowski, the Stranger Thing, or Nicholson's A Few Good Men speech. I know them by heart.
And when he reminds her that there's one more great, it's a little reminder, again, that their dad is gone.
Yeah.
So it's got a sting, too. Dad's not here, it's us, it's the next generation, and we have to move on without him, and that means adding another great to the list for the grandfather. And on the race thing, and I'm glad you brought up The Harder They Fall, one of the rare black cowboy movies, did you know that something like a quarter of cowboys back then were black?
No, but I'm not that shocked about it.
Now it's not shocking because none of us are surprised that Hollywood and history might have whitewashed, especially a popular section of history.
Yeah.
But all the Westerns that we've seen, all the Westerns that were made back then, they were so popular, had virtually no black people in it. Or if they did, they weren't cowboys.
They were friendly.
They were
idiots.
friendly. The best example I can think of is...
in The Searchers, I think it is.
I can't remember his name, but the friend in The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, he's a good guy. But he's not a hero, and he's not a main character. He's not even a cowboy, which they totally were.
And Morgan Freeman in Unforgiven, but that's 30 years. Well, I guess a classic now if it's 30 plus years old.
Like, we can name the exceptions. We can count on one hand the number of exceptions in Western films, but part of a movie like The Harder They Fall and Nope is to fix that image that Hollywood broke, that black people don't know about horses and they're not comfortable on a horse.
It makes sense they would be, because as we see in Yellowstone, which you're not watching anymore, but I still am, and there's one black cowboy. Maybe there's two. There's only one I can think of. They live in a bunkhouse. They're grown men and women living all together like they're college students in a dorm. They don't make that much money. They have a very rich man paying them. Well, why is it so hard to believe that people that didn't get paid a lot of money ever, really, black people compared to white people, would do a manual labor hard job like being a cowboy?
Yeah,
it seems more likely to do that than almost anything else.
It's like the lowest rung of working class. We recently rewatched Brokeback Mountain. It's a great movie that reminds you of just how being a cowboy was both really hard work and the worst work. You didn't make a lot of money. You'd be away from your family for long periods of time. Nobody treated you with respect. You were replaceable with the next young man that walked in there looking for a job.
Look where Heath Ledger ends up, in a trailer type thing out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. He never gets out of it. He never breaks out of being a cowboy. And so financially, he's kind of a failure. So yeah, of course, a job that's that crummy would naturally be given to black people.
Another interesting touch in this movie that I don't remember being very much of the movie, maybe 30 seconds or so, maybe less, that M confesses to OJ that she has sex with her lady therapists. So it's fine that she's a lesbian, but interesting touch that she sleeps with her lady therapists.
I completely forgot that detail.
I don't really know why it's there.
Maybe just a little character. You talked about Keke Palmer.
That could be why the dad didn't like her.
Because she's gay.
Maybe it's what it is.
I think it's probably because she's a girl.
That too.
That woman has charisma for days.
Well, she's a singer, too. She's not really an actress. Well, she's an actress, but she does sing as much as anything else.
She's just like Emerald says. She's like, I do a little singing.
Right. She was Aquila in Aquila and the Bee back in the early 2000s when she was 12 or 13 years old. So this is, I guess, now mid-30s or so.
She's an entertainer.
She's got a long career if she wants to have one. She's certainly good-looking enough and talented enough. We'll jump around again, and we'll come back to the spectacle aspect of this movie. I guess it's for the money because... A, their horses are being sold off to Ricky, so they don't have as many of them as he did, and then he's feeding them to this thing, which we don't find out until later on. So it's a good reason, I guess, but why are they taking the chance? Is it just for fame? Well, it is for money, but is it more for fame in the first place? And I ask that question because black people are the ones who so often feel exploited, and they want to exploit something else. The hypocrisy of that. I understand why, because they got to pay the bill somehow. But they're exploiting this thing, and they're the ones that felt exploited.
Let's say there was an alien that was exclusively visiting our house. How much motivation would you have to want to get a picture of that alien? I don't think it really begs an explanation. Of course they want to get a good image of this alien. Even if you weren't going to get rich and famous and all the benefit that might come from that, just for the sake of showing the world, look at this cool thing, you don't need an explanation for why a person would want to share this news with the world. It's part of human nature.
They're plays into the theme, though. Spectacle and exploitation.
Yeah.
Even if it's on a fairly minor level, because they do have some good reasons.
And the fact that it could save the farm is certainly a bonus.
And this thing,
motivator.
Unlike the horses and even Gordy would have been minding their own business out in the wild. They would have died of all kinds of reasons out there. If the horses just lived in the wild, they would have died. They wouldn't have lived necessarily long lives, but they are being exploited in some ways by the Haywoods. On this ranch, they're being treated really well. OJ's a really good cowboy. He loves his horses, but he's also selling them off, and he doesn't know what Ricky's going to do with them. He doesn't even know it's as bad as what it is. This thing is attacking them, so it's not completely innocent. Just like the shark in Jaws picks a fight with the people of Amity. So it's easier to be against the shark or to be against Jean Jacket when they're the ones that attack human beings. We're going to side with the human beings. But still.
I write about this. I didn't put this together myself, but Ricky's been feeding Jean Jacket a horse once a week and trying to draw crowds. He's trying to, train Jean Jacket. As they say later in the film, you can't train a predator. You can only make a deal with him, and this is Ricky's hubris that he makes this mistake. So he tries to train him by luring him with a horse. He's buying these horses from the Haywood Ranch and feeding them to Jean Jacket until the Haywoods put the decoy horse out and Jean Jacket accidentally eats the decoy horse. It gives indigestion, as they say, and he spits it out. And it's only after that that Jean Jacket is no longer playing nice with Ricky, shows up 40 minutes early to their Friday date, and instead of eating the horse that is there for him, he's like, no, I don't eat horses anymore. You tried to trick me. And he eats the entire crowd.
Yeah.
Their family, everything. There's kids there.
Oh, everybody's gone.
Really quite gruesome. Again, not scary exactly, but horrifying.
And that poor castmate of his that lived all those years looking like that ends up dying when she's probably not that old. I think it's supposed to be the one who played his sister.
He says, she was my castmate and my first crush, so she can't be that much older than him.
Well, she could have been the mother, I guess, but I think it's supposed to be the sister.
Yeah, I think so too. Well, she has a picture of herself on her sweatshirt.
Right.
Picture of herself as she was in that show.
We did watch the movie over a week ago, so some things are escaping me. Plus, there's a lot in this movie.
Yeah, this cold that I have made us put off recording here, so some of the details are starting to get a little fuzzy for me.
It does swirl up Angel for a little while and arguably eats him, but then spits him back out. I guess what it was is that Brandon Perea, I think I'm saying that name right, bargained or discussed with Jordan Peele that he should live, and then I guess Peele eventually agreed, so that's why he wraps himself up in barbed wire. Jean Jacket doesn't want to try to swallow him. He's got to swallow shoes and pants and shirts as it is, and although it spits out keys and nickels in the beginning of the film, but Brandon lives, but not for any really great reason, because we see him on the ground. I think he notices that the IMAX camera's destroyed, and he's okay, but then we don't see him again, I don't believe.
They gave him, I don't want to say an arc, but they gave him a beautiful moment where he says, we're doing this to enrich ourselves, of course, and for the adventure of it and everything, but also, don't you think this could do good for the world? And whether it makes sense or not, you can tell that he believes it, and that there is a kind of altruistic purpose behind this, and that he's kind of a good friend to them, too, and seems like a good guy. And you already have the example of the cinematographer and the TMZ guy, the guy on the bike. His only purpose really is to leave a bike there for Emerald to get away on, because it's a cool-looking costume and everything.
He doesn't live
but
long,
we
though.
already get it. We already had the cinematographer giving us this character who's too obsessed with getting the shot and gets himself killed. We don't need the TMZ guy. Also, it's the external threat that if they don't get this image soon, then the outside world is catching on, something's going on. Time is of the essence as well.
Yeah.
But mostly so that Emerald has that cool bike, and she gets to do the Akira homage when
Anime
she
again.
stops. Yes, clearly Jordan Peele loves anime. I watched this great interview with him where he talks about how inspiring it is to watch anime and to see a different kind of storytelling. We can think it's the only blueprint, the only rule book is the storytelling that we grew up with, this Joseph Conrad hero story or the Save the Cat. These things that work for us partially because it's the style that we were raised on, but if you really dig into other cultures, then you can get more creative. You can see different ways to tell stories. So his interest in anime could be part of the reason why this movie is starting to drift from the formula that viewers are comfortable with. Part of the reason why you have a movie on Rotten Tomatoes that has an excellent score from critics and a so-so score from audiences. When I see a movie on Rotten Tomatoes has a great critic score and a bad audience score, I'm like, I'm going to love this movie.
Yeah, the critics probably are more aware of what's going on than the average audience member is, because I didn't get a lot of these things in any of the three movies until I heard about it later on, but I liked it more when I heard all those things.
I know.
Some people like it
so
less.
Fun. Yeah. Not everyone likes a movie experience like that. Most people don't, and that's fine. As long as they keep making movies like this for snobs like us.
Well, Peele does have a fourth one in the works, so I don't know when it's going to come out. The writers and actors strikes take as long as they did. The actors isn't done as we record this. Maybe it will be by the time we post it.
The whole beginning of this decade has just been plagued with one thing after another, getting in the way of people making art, particularly movies and TV shows. You just almost have to put like a big asterisk behind stuff like box office numbers and awards with everything that's come out in the first half of this decade, because it's one thing after another.
And guess what the studios were doing, or the producers, I guess is what it is specifically, were doing to the writers, and in some ways are doing to the actors, exploiting them because they're not paying them a fair wage, especially the writers, I think even more so than the actors.
And just like Jean Jacket, this is an industry that can chew you up and spit you out.
Also true. Brandon is a great example of that. He is spat out. By the way, before we get into the cast, the handshake we talked about in the intro, I don't know if that's something that Kaluuya and Palmer did when they got to know each other in this movie, or if one of them did it and told the other one about it, or if it's a Peele thing. I don't really know what it's for, but it sure is cool. We talked about Trobed, Troy and Abed became Trobed. But when they do that handshake, it just took us back to that, because we've been doing it for so long. Especially in Jeopardy, if we sweep a category or something like that, it's always that, even though we aren't facing each other, so it's more like a sideways one. But anyway, anything to say about that?
Oh, yeah, I think I read somewhere specifically that a lot of white people were like, where'd you get that handshake from? Oh, only white people ask this. This is like a black person thing.
Oh, okay.
And quote The Simpsons again, we're so lame. It's true. We're so lame.
Well, we do our own cool handshake. We stole
We
from
have our own handshake
a black
that we
guy
stole
and
from other non-white people.
What is he again? Indian?
He's
is
Indian,
what
yeah.
Ahmed
Indian
is?
or Pakistani? I think he's Indian. I can't remember.
Okay. We stole from them. So Daniel Kaluuya was in Get Out, of course, and Black Panther, which was a giant hit in 2018. So what a run he had there, 2017, 2018. He won the supporting actor Oscar for Judas and the Black Messiah. Must have been 2020? Oh, everything's blended together. I don't know Oscars as well in the more modern era, just like I don't know baseball stats and stuff in the modern era the way I do from my youth and before. Keke Palmer was in Hustlers as well. We may cover that next spring when it's 5 years old, so the Jennifer Lopez movie. And, of course, Aquila and the Bee a long time ago. Brendan, again, I think it's Perea, has mostly been in shorts and has done a little bit of TV. We're going to see more of him, and he is pretty sweet. He doesn't like them at first because they're dickish to him, but by the end, I think they are a team. I mentioned Michael Wincott's credits already, that great voice. Stephen Yeun, we covered Minari, I think it was 2 falls ago. And, of course, he's best known from TV stuff, The Walking Dead, and Beef. We recommend Beef quite highly. He and Ali Wong were great together.
Yeah, incredible show.
I did not expect that show to go the way it did at the end. Not that it's some incredible left turn from what you've been watching the whole time. In some ways it makes sense where it went, but I didn't call it either. Keith David, their dad, briefly in the movie. He's a villain in The Thing in the end. Right? Another great Alien on Earth movie. And Requiem for a Dream. He's got a small part of that. We covered those 2 movies years ago. When we saw the footage, there's not that much of it, with Gordy attacking the people on the TV set, I thought to myself, those moves look familiar.
I said this to you. Well, maybe we both thought it.
We had the same thought then, because we weren't talking during the movie. We saw it in the theater the first time. But Terry Notary, the guy from The Square, which was your ultimate movie moment when we did our best of the decade, when this guy does this performance art that turns aggressive and then gets very aggressive at the end of it. We won't give it away if people haven't seen it before. It is one hell of a scene. He's also apparently an Avatar, so I guess he's one of the performers.
He's like a big mocap guy.
Because he's also played apes in the recent Planet of the Apes movies. He's Rocket in, I think, all 3 of them. And he was Kong in Kong Skull Island. So it wasn't Andy Serkis who... No, he never did Kong at all, did he? No, he did Kong in King Kong for Peter Jackson. Yeah, right. But anyway, so Terry Notary, just the way he moves, he does a great job of looking like a chimp, but I thought, that chimp looks familiar. And, of course, it's a visual effect. But Notary did his thing on set.
I mean, the scene itself harkens back to that scene in The Square. It's a movie I recommend, not super strongly, but I recommend it to anyone who's curious about it. But if you don't feel like watching a 2-hour Swedish film about the art world, fair. I highly recommend you can just look up that scene and watch it alone, standalone. You don't really need any context to enjoy it. And it is one of the most mind-bendingly incredible pieces of cinema I've ever seen.
So Peele, of course, directed Get Out, and Us. We've covered them both. They're in our archives. Peele and Ian Cooper produced it. Cooper is the creative director of Monkey Paw, which is Jordan Peele's production company. So he's, I think, always on the production credits, at least the last few. Us, for sure. I don't know if he did Get Out, because that was more Jason Blum's thing, I think. And, of course, Peele himself. He's been a producer on all of his movies. The film is 2-2-0 to 1. A lot of it was shot on IMAX, and we saw the Blu-ray that we got at that yard sale for $1. But it is on demand on, I think, Crave here in Canada. Hoyte van Hoytema, I think I'm saying that guy's name right. Nolan primarily. Well, he's known for that as much as anybody. But also The Fighter and Her, 2 movies that I've covered in one way or another on my podcasts. The Fighter is on Scoring at the Movies, and you and I covered Her, and we're probably going to do it again. Another movie we covered before for the Now Playing Project, we'll probably do in the next couple of weeks, I guess, at this point. That's another one that looks great. Her, beautiful movie.
Yeah.
Nicholas Mansour cut it. He also cut Keanu, which Key and Peele are both in as actors, but they didn't direct it. Anyway, so they're in Keanu, and he cut that, and he cut Us, and he's worked with Key and Peele for a long time on their show. And the music, Michael Abels, not many other credits. His first 2 picks were for Jordan Peele movies, so I guess Us and this. Or was it Get Out and Us? Anyway, he's mostly worked, so far at least, with Jordan Peele. I guess we've already said the look and everything else is great. Maybe it's a little too long, but the Ricky/Jupe scenes are pretty important, I guess, the flashback stuff, to tie into the theme. You could lose them. I think the movie would still be pretty good, but it probably does help overall. I think the music's pretty effective. What about you?
Oh, I think technically this movie hits it out of the park. Everything is so well done. Like I was saying with Jordan Peele, from the moment he started making feature films, he just seemed to have such a firm handle on what makes a film watchable, and he has great pacing, and he has a great eye, and he has a great mind for story. Yep. I guess this is an instinct that he honed when they were making their show and other projects that he's done. But it's refreshing to see a director who can really nail those aspects and just start with the bedrock of a film that's really well made.
Yeah, he's an excellent writer, too. Wrote all 3 movies. What happens next? I already said maybe the creature isn't dead, so this might not be over. As for the Haywoods trying to sell this footage, along with Brandon, I guess, whether it just be her and Brandon or if OJ did live, I already said, would anyone believe it's real? And even if the IMAX footage had survived and not been ruined when Antlers, because that's, of course, Wincott's name, Antlers Holst? Yeah, Antlers Holst. What a name. So he's sucked up in the sky, dies inside the alien. I think people will be skeptical and say it's all bogus, which is never addressed, but I think that's one of the things that I bring to it anyway, which is they're not going to believe you, dude. And maybe Peele realized that and just didn't really get into that point because the movie's over. He knows the movie's over. That's it. No coda. She sees OJ, black, and credits. So this might not go well after all, and the Haywoods may have to sell that ranch anyway.
I think that Emerald successfully sells the footage. She writes a memoir. She options it into a movie or an HBO series. She becomes personally famous, and then she parlays that fame into creating an amusement park out of the ranch, just like Jupe's claim, which either succeeds or fails, but at any rate, she buries that trauma so down deep that when people ask her about it, she ends up describing the SNL skit about it instead of her real lived experience.
Oh, yeah. Nice. Good call back there, too. All right, then, last thoughts on a pretty excellent pseudo-horror movie, alien movie, Jordan Peele's Nope. Your last thoughts.
If there's anybody listening here who is on the fence about coming back for seconds, I hope that we convince you to watch it again. And I hope that you discover something that we missed when we watched it.
Oh, we definitely did.
Exactly. 5 years from now, we'll go back and watch it again. 10 years from now, again. I think each time we'll get a different experience watching the film because it's just so rich.
We didn't talk in The Conjuring just very briefly here about when Bathsheba grabs one of the daughters by the hair and is smashing her all over the room, making it very clear this thing is real because everyone sees this. It's a daytime shot. I talk about being a nighttime scary movie, but it's a daytime shot. So we always miss stuff in horror movies, or any movie really, that we should have mentioned. But anyway, as for the last thoughts about this movie, what did I tell you about The Conjuring when we did that podcast? If you're in a horror movie, don't live out in the country because that's where they're going to get you. I do like this movie a lot, and researching it was as fascinating as watching it, just like Get Out was, and Us was too. Get Out is number one. I think it goes that way for me. Get Out number one, Us number two, this number three. Yeah. But all of them are easy thumbs up. And I think all of them, especially Get Out, will improve with age. It already has. Now that I've learned so much about Jordan's intentions. Although one thing that's better in this than the other two, although they look and sound really good too, are the technicals. Peele's getting better as he goes along. But I've said that before. Scorsese, Tarantino, and the Coens were not known as visual stylists. Maybe the Coens more so in their early days. And now all three of them, when they make a movie, you know it's going to be perfect and beautiful. Even Nolan with Memento looked fine, looked pretty good. And Insomnia, well done. But now Nolan's going to make a movie, and whoever shoots it for him, usually Von Hoytema lately, an Oscar nomination seems inevitable. Well, that seems to be true, or maybe will be true one day for Peele, because he's a good stylist himself.
In both Get Out and Us, there's a scene in the third act of the film where somebody in the film, basically for the audience's sake, does a long-winded bit of exposition explaining exactly what's happening and why it's happening, but that never happens in Nope. We are never given an explanation, and that ambiguity just hangs in the air as the credits roll, and we have to live with it. And I wonder if this is part of Peele's evolution as a filmmaker to continue challenging his audiences more.
Although, ironically, his movies are getting longer. Get Out was about 1:47, I think. Us was right around 2 hours, maybe literally 2 hours. This is 2:10. Getting a little longer, but yeah, maybe a little less telling us literally what's going on.
A little more show, a little less tell, and a little more mystery.
Sorry for the burp there. You needed it in Get Out, though, because that is a really unusual thing that's going on there. Us is actually a pretty simple concept, and this, in a lot of ways, is even more simpler than those are, especially if you just stick with the Haywood story, and if you didn't really care much about the Ricky thing, which you don't really need, as we said, then it's a very straightforward thing. This thing's coming to their ranch, getting in their faces, and they got to deal with it. And they win. Or at least she does. All right, that was Nope. Our next episode is only 4 days away. Yes, I did a show just last Friday, but that was an analysis of the Friday the 13th series that happened to go up on Friday the 13th. Normally I would have posted an episode on the 6th, but moved it to a week later for obvious reasons. So let's reset the every other Friday routine this week as I dig into a motion picture that my fine feathered wife doesn't like very much anyway and wasn't gunned about covering, so I'll do The Exorcist on my own. And I moved it to this point in the month because it was so similar. Well, Conjuring came many years later, but when we saw that movie, I didn't realize just how much it's similar to Exorcist. That's why I didn't cover it on the 9th like I was supposed to originally. That was Halloween then instead. All these explainers. When Bev and I do this together again in 7 days, we'll be chatting about The Wicker Man. The bees! The bees! Wise! The bees! No, not that one. The Neil LaBute remake of The Wicker Man was ripped to shreds, but Robin Hardy's original wasn't mocked and booed until my throat became sore. So in a week, we'll be talking about the 1973 version of The Wicker Man. The coming attractions trivia for the original Wicker Man. Name the other movie we reviewed in which Edward Woodward, the main character in Wicker Man, is in a film in which a cult kills people.
So for the answer to that question, check out next week's podcast about The Wicker Man. You already know how to find us, but let me remind you to favorite or subscribe wherever you listen, which is also where you can find our archive of hundreds of episodes that are available for free. Is there a movie you'd like to hear us cover? Well, you can make a recommendation when you leave us a review and a rating. You can also just leave us a review because you like us and you want to help us reach more listeners. It's a great way to support the podcast. We're both on Twitter. I'm at Bev Ellis Ellis and Ryan is at MovieFiend51.
Excuse me, I'm now calling it Twitterix.
Twitterix.
Yeah. I don't want to have to call the other stupid name.
I didn't even want to acknowledge that the name has changed. I know.
It's going to be that one day. We're going to have to call it that whether we like it or not.
Oh, God, I do not like it.
I don't either.
You can also reach us by email.
X. Come on.
It's a bad name. Have you ever seen podcast@gmail.com? You can find our podcast on YouTube as well. Our channel is at HYES Ellis. And to enjoy freshly roasted premium coffee delivered straight to you in Canada or the US, please go to sparkplug.coffee/HYES and enjoy a 20% discount.
Hang on, should we really end this podcast? Maybe we should just keep going. What do you think?
Nope.
Okay, you're right.
And cut.